Today is the 7th of May 2023. Zimbabwe is expected to hold a general election this year. However, President Emmerson Mnangagwa is yet to announce the poll date publicly, and his ability to do so could be delayed by a court complaint filed against the Movement for Democratic Change (MDCT). Nevertheless, when it does take place, the election will be the second since a military coup ousted Robert Mugabe in 2017. Mugabe's removal from power gave way to cautious optimism about a new dawn in the country's post-independence affairs. But more than 5 years since he was succeeded in office by Mnangagwa, the hope for a more peaceful and prosperous Zimbabwe is all but evaporated. In 2018, the country's electoral commission declared Mnangagwa the winner of that year's general election by a margin of just 36,000 votes over Nelson Chamisa, the younger popular candidate for the main opposition party, Movement for Democratic Change or MDC. The announcement triggered post-election demonstrations in Harare, Zimbabwe's capital, to which security forces responded with heavy-handed violence against peaceful protesters, killing at least 6 people. The landscape of civil liberties and political freedoms in Zimbabwe has only worsened since then. Human rights abuses by security forces are widespread, as are arbitrary arrest of journalists and civil society activists. Mnangagwa's ruling Zimbabwe African National Union Patriotic Front, or ZANU-PF, leverages its control of key state institutions, including the judiciary, the electoral commission, and the security agencies, to harass opposition leaders, making it difficult for them to compete on a level playing field. However, threats from the state are hardly the only worries the opposition must contend with. Zimbabwe's opposition parties are in a much weaker position today than they were in 2018 because of severe infighting, which has led to yet another factional split involving the Movement for Democratic Change (MDC). The MDC was formed in 1999 as an opposition party to Mugabe's ZANU-PF, and for years it was led by Morgan Tsvangirai. A perennial opposition presidential candidate, Tsvangirai served a 4-year term as Prime Minister from 2009 to 2013 after the contested 2008 presidential election led to a brief South Africa brokered power-sharing government. But the MDC was long plagued by internal divisions, including a major split in 2005 ahead of a crucial legislative election. The two factions reunited before the 2018 general election, forming an electoral pact to compete against ZANU-PF. But that accord was short-lived. In January 2022, at the end of a legal battle to determine control of the party, Chamisa lost the legal ownership of the party's name to Douglas Monzora, the leader of the rival MDC faction. Chamisa and his allies went on to form a new party, the Citizens Coalition for Change, or CCC, in January 2022. Chamisa was chosen as the party's presidential nominee in April, but the procedure deck is heavily stacked against the CCC in this year's general election. ZANU-PF enjoys the advantage of incumbency with all the access to levels of state patronage that comes with it. The ruling party controls Zimbabwe's judiciary, security agencies, and the key institutions overseeing the election. Zimbabwe's opposition claims it is equipped for a difficult election campaign, but its room to maneuver is narrowing. The CCC, on the other hand, is short on funds. Chamisa won more than 40% of the national vote in 2018, largely surpassing the 5% threshold required for his party to receive state funding. But that money is now going to the MDC, under whose banner he ran in 2018, hereby benefiting Monzora. To complicate matters, last August, the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission announced a dramatic increase in nomination fees for candidates, with presidential candidates required to pay the equivalent of $20,000 and the parliamentary candidates $1,000. Candidates must also pay between $10 and $150 for an electronic copy of the voters' roll, unless it chooses not to field a full slate. The CCC will be required to pay at least $250,000 to register its candidates for the 2023 general elections, money it simply doesn't have. Meanwhile, the incumbent ZANU-PF is unsurprisingly well-funded. Mnangagwa himself is wealthy, as is much of his inner circle. A recent expose by Al Jazeera on corruption in Zimbabwe claimed he has amassed a war chest of nearly $250 million for the upcoming election. The opposition, which is heavily dependent on funding from its supporters in the Zimbabwean diaspora, cannot realistically raise even a small fraction of that money. Organizations that support civil society groups and opposition parties in authoritarian regimes have also reduced their funding. The shortage of funds that now poses a real hurdle to Chamisa's prospects. It's an illustration of how in Zimbabwe and elsewhere across the world, democracy is incredibly costly, leaving opposition parties regularly shut out for lack of adequate financing. In addition, ZANU-PF has leveraged its ability to distribute patronage to its advantage. Since Mnangagwa came to power, economic conditions in Zimbabwe have further deteriorated, but political elites and their inner circles continue to get wealthier. ZANU-PF's pool of candidates also reflects its diversity outreach efforts following the 2018 election, with this year's slate of aspirants including several affluent members of racial minority groups, many of whom are happy to use their wealth to entice voters. For instance, Finance Minister Mnangagwa, a member of the Ndebele minority ethnic group, has spent considerable sums of his own money to supply Wi-Fi to constituency in Kodre Park, a traditional stronghold of the opposition. Such measures are likely to boost ZANU-PF support at the polls. While all of these dynamics represent continuity with Zimbabwe's electoral politics during the Mugabe era, there have been some significant changes. Shortly after the 2018 election, Mnangagwa formed an advisory committee that assembled many critics and adversaries of the regime, promising to give them a chance to contribute to policy making. This effort at extending an olive branch to the opposition was largely a failure, as many of its members, including the media guru Trevor Ngube, quit. But it broadened ZANU-PF's appeal among many middle-class Zimbabweans who have traditionally supported opposition parties. Meanwhile, although Mnangagwa aggressively tried to engage with the international community after nearly 2 decades of Harare's diplomatic isolation, relations with Western powers have not dramatically improved since he took power. That isn't likely to change in the near term. Mnangagwa, like Mugabe before him, regularly blames Western sanctions for Zimbabwe's economic woes, which include the weakening Zimbabwe dollar. The government announced this week that it would peg the currency to gold coins, but it is unclear how it will implement this measure. In the meantime, hospitals around the country are on life support, and the cost of basic commodities is rising rapidly, evoking memories of the hyperinflation of 2008. In fact, the sanctions imposed on Zimbabwe by the US and the UK are targeted penalties aimed at a handful of individuals accused of various atrocities, and they have little impact on the country's economy. Nevertheless, ZANU-PF has successfully weaponized this narrative to gain up support from its political base, while the opposition has yet to counter this message effectively. All of this makes for a tough electoral environment for the CCC whenever the elections are held. How it plans to counter ZANU-PF is still being determined, as party leaders appear to be keeping their cards close to their chest. Chamisa stated earlier this year that his party is equipped for a difficult election campaign, but by his own admission, his room to maneuver in a system the opposition is described as a dictatorship is narrowing. Meanwhile, ZANU-PF is pressing on with efforts to secure its advantage ahead of the polls, raising the risk of another post-election crisis Zimbabweans could do without. So guys, that's the latest here. And yes, it's one of those many points that we always talk about here on Prince Mill Entertainment TV, about how difficult the situation will be for the opposition political parties to campaign, even to register their candidates at this year's election, personal funding. And CCC needs almost like $500,000 or even $1 million US to fully register their candidates, including the presidential councils, seats, urban seats. I mean, want to da mari yakatoti one day. Saka vakuda funding yemari yakawanda, and nenguva yatiri at the moment, I don't think even raising this money from its supporters would be enough. Saka inyaya yemari, personal funding, personal mari, it's difficult to win the election. So the deck is stacked against Zimbabwe's opposition parties. That's the truth here. 2018, it was a different move because there were some G40 members who were supporting the opposition political parties because of what happened in 2017. We all know what happened there. Mugabe vakangobviswa nechisimba, as the men didn't want to go, but he had to. So some members were not happy about this. They supported a Triple C, which was MDC Alliance at that time. Wachamisa, yes, I mean Wachamisa wakajwa with a narrow vote according to ZEC, but Ono Jazendika court, and this year is going to be different because some of the G40 members vamboda Wachamisa pai avasisi kusadzwa kwachamisa vakadzokera maybe kuZANU-PF vamwondo vakangogara kumaterraces, and they're not really confident that Wachamisa can win this election in 2023. So we're going to see how Triple C will maneuver because they're keeping their cards on the chest at the moment. Varikuramba vakagara pasi vachingorumira muvhu vachironga zvavari kuronga, vakuzviitira behind closed doors because vakuziva kuti whatever move yavachaita vacha receive a counter attack from the ruling party ZANU-PF. So Triple C is really planning their way secretly. They're really planning my plans out. Parties are Iwo Vega, and which is a good thing because they don't want infiltration from the ruling party. We've seen it happening so many times. Towards my elections, the party, but I party. At the end of the day, they're supposed to be united. But the question still remains: for how long will they keep those cards on their chest? Sometime, somewhere, they shall have to review their plans. But anyway, we'll be keeping you guys up to date here on Weekly News Roundup on Principal Entertainment TV. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Remember, guys, to like, share, comment, and follow, and turn on the notification bell. Bless up.